All right. Hopefully everybody is doing well this morning. Just going to pause for a moment to get things set up. So a little bit later today, but I think this one will be a little bit shorter anyway. Yesterday we were talking a fair bit about kind of the process of creating important goals, and today's going to be a conversation about, why is it that you do what you do? And why is that important for you? So what I thought I would do is start with why. All right. So how do you explain when things go as expected, or how do you explain, or maybe not as expected, like when things kind of break down a little bit? Or how do you explain when someone is able to defy all expectations? Everything that maybe you would thought might happen, there's people out there who defy all other expectations. An example of that, it could be, an organization, it could be a person. There's a great example of this would be a company like Apple. Why are they so innovative? They're the type of company, they have access to all the same consultants, information, technology that all other companies would have access to as well. Another example of this might be somebody like an athlete like Michael Jordan. Why is Michael Jordan able to defy all expectations for a basketball player? He wasn't the only person who had access to a basketball net, a basketball court, anything like that. He wasn't even the only great basketball player that played basketball. When all basketball players have access to the same practice time, the same coaches, the same court, why is it that somebody like him stands out above all? Well, as it turns out, there's something that all of our great leaders, all of the great leaders of the world act, think, and communicate the same way. And it's completely the opposite of the way all other people communicate. So we're talking about the 1% of the 1% here. What makes them different? A lot of this information was actually curated by a guy named Simon Sinek. He's got a bunch of videos and that kind of stuff out there. But he wrote a book called Start With Why. His Wikipedia page says he's an author and motivational speaker. I think he's also an instructor of communication at some university or college somewhere. But anyway, what he talks about is one of the reasons that all of our great leaders are able to lead so well is he's got something called the golden circle. So this would start with why people do what they do, how they do it, and what they do. And I'm going to take a little moment here to sort of just define some of that. It's pretty safe to say that, every person out there, every single person knows what they do. It's pretty straightforward. What are you doing? Although that's a question that a lot of people ask of some others, but I think people know generally what they're doing. Fewer people will know how they do it. So that, in business could be your differentiating or value proposition. In computers, that could be something like your proprietary software. It could be your unique selling proposition, something like that. And then even fewer people know why they do what they do. And that's kind of what I want to get into. Typically, people think why they're doing what they do is that they're guessing at some future event. They're guessing at something that's going to happen into the future. But it's important to understand that the why you're doing what you do isn't a result of something. Why is your purpose? So I've talked a little bit about taking up purpose rather than something like happiness. Happiness would be your why. Or sorry, some happiness would be more like, what you're doing. I'm doing it because I want to be happy. But taking up something that's purposeful, that should be your why. So why do you exist? Why do you get out of bed in the morning? And why should anybody even care that you woke up this morning? So I'm going to share a little image here. So this is Simon's golden circle. So we want to focus on the stuff over here for the moment. I'll get into the other stuff in a minute, but so this is, the why is sort of the deep inner circle there. The how would be that secondary circle, and the what is right on the outside. Okay. So the way we act, the way we think, the way we communicate is from the outside in, most typically. Meaning we start with what, right? We tell someone what we're doing. Then we might tell someone how we do it. And then hopefully they ask why. And the reason we communicate like that is because we're starting from the clearest thing to the most fuzzy, sort of out of focus thing. So typically your what is going to be the clearest thing that comes to mind. However, when it comes to that sort of top 1% of the 1%, the best leaders, the best organizations, they are going to start from the center and work their way out. Now, this is an important differentiation. So if you look at, say, a company like Apple, which I mentioned earlier, this is also one of Simon's examples. It's a good example because it's really easy to understand, right? A lot of people own iPhones or Apple computers or that kind of thing. And if Apple communicated the same way that all other businesses communicated, it might sound something similar to this. So Apple would say something like, we make great computers. They're fast, they're efficient, they're beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. Would you like to buy one? Now, you're probably thinking, well, not really. And that's kind of the whole point. This is how most of our communication's done, whether it's in marketing from businesses or otherwise, even interpersonal communication, right? We tend to tell people, if you've ever had your spouse or somebody will say, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? They don't ask that. They ask, what are you doing? Right? We want to start by why, though. So let's focus on that. So we say what we do, we say how we're different, and we expect a behavior, right? So I'm a personal trainer. How I use, say, kettlebells, for example, because they're a functional, they lend to a lot of functional training. Would you like to train with me? That's essentially that process. Okay, so we say what we do, we say how we are different, and we expect a behavior, whether that's a purchase, a vote, a like, a share, whatever that might be. Okay. Right now, we see this a lot with the shutdown, like with businesses trying to regain customers. We see it a lot with smaller gyms who at one point were asking their members to continue paying their membership dues and whatnot. We had people, or a lot of gyms were like, here's our new gym. We've got the best equipment. Would you like to join? Again, I'm a personal trainer. I use kettlebells because they're functional, want to work out. Well, here's what that communication should actually sound like. So here's what Apple actually does in their advertisements. Everything we do, we believe in challenging what's already out there. We believe in challenging the status quo. We think differently. Their how, the way we challenge the status quo, the way we think differently than all of our competition, is by making our products fast, efficient, beautiful in their design, simple to use, and user-friendly. We just happen to make great computers. Will you buy one? Chances are you're more attracted to that statement rather than the previous. So people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. That's why everyone is comfortable buying a computer from Apple. But it doesn't just stop there. That's not just why they buy a computer. That's also why you'll buy their cell phone. That's also why you'll buy their smart speakers, their earphones, and all the rest of Apple's products. When all of Apple's competitors are equally qualified to make the exact same products, and many of them do and even try, some of them are successful, but most of them fail. And the best part of this, so if you're looking at that image I've got up there, the best part of this is that none of this is actually just my opinion. I'm not telling you what I think. I'm not telling you how you ought to navigate through the world. All of this is actually grounded in biology. Now, notice I said biology and not psychology. There's a big difference there. Okay? Biology is the actual network and nerves and raw material that is creating how you do things. Psychology is sort of the hovering output that comes from all of that. So if you look at a cross-section of our human brain, you're going to see that our brains are broken up into three major components. And they happen to correlate really well with the circle on the left there, the golden circle, the what, how, and why. So our newest brain, our Homo sapien brain, that's our neurocortex. It corresponds with what? So that's the outer circle, right? The neocortex is responsible for our rational analytical thought and language. Our limbic brain makes up the middle section. That's our how and why. The limbic brain is responsible for all of our feelings, like trust and loyalty. It's also responsible for all of our human behavior, decision making. And it absolutely has no space for the capacity of language. Now, that's super important. We can communicate from the outside in, and people will understand large amounts of data, right? Large amounts of complicated information. You know, what are the features, the benefits, the facts, the figures of whatever it is you might be looking at? But it won't drive your behavior. So when we talk from the inside out, we're talking directly to the part of the brain that's going to control your behavior. We allow people to rationalize it with the tangible things we say and do. For example, would you actually trust me as a personal trainer if I never worked out? It's probably doubtful. This is where all of our gut sort of decision making comes from. Our primary feelings that you go through in order to have to do something, right? You've probably heard someone say, I know all about this product. I see that it's got the best features. It's got the best stuff, but it just doesn't feel right. And the question is, why doesn't it feel right? The reason it doesn't feel right is because the part of the brain driving your decision making doesn't control language. It drives your feelings. So we want to understand why we do what we do. But if you don't know why you do what you do and why people respond to why you do what you do, you will never get someone to buy a product from you. You'll never get somebody to, say, vote for you. You're never going to get someone to share your video or like your video or your image on Instagram, whatever it might be. But more importantly, you're never going to get someone to be loyal or to trust you. If you know why you do what you do, people will want to be part of what it is that you do. So we don't want to sell people on what you have. You want to sell people who believe in what you believe. We don't hire people like when you're looking for a job, or maybe you're a manager who's looking to fill a position. You don't want to hire someone who just needs a job, right? You want to hire someone who believes in your cause, who has the same belief system as you. If you hire people who just need a job, they're going to work for the money. It's going to be transactional. It's going to be something that they're just not going to give their all for. But if you hire people who believe in what you believe, they're going to work for you with absolute blood, sweat, and tears. They're going to give it their all. And it's not going to be about just the hours or the numbers or the paycheck at the end of the day. Now, Michael Jordan happens to be a really great example of this. So I would say that most people probably know who Michael Jordan is, right? He's a basketball player. That would be your what. But why did he play basketball? Well, it's probably because he was good at it, right? Michael Jordan didn't think he was a good basketball player. In fact, he was actually cut from his high school basketball team. This is a really famous story. When he was cut, he came to his mother, and he was upset and sad, obviously, like you'd expect, a high school kid to be when they get cut from a sports team. But her response was really interesting. Her response was, well, go practice. Spend the entire summer practicing so that the next time they have tryouts, you're going to be better than the worst person on that team. Then you're going to make that team. So this was a pivotal point in Michael Jordan's career. Okay. So he came to his mother and he said, I want to be a basketball player. His how was by trying out for the basketball team. And his why was because I enjoyed basketball. He was working from the outside in. And he ultimately failed in trying to make his high school basketball team. Instead, what his mother said to him is she flipped that whole sort of script on him and had him start working from the inside out. Well, why do you want to play basketball? And it's because he had a love for the sport. He loves the game. How? Well, then you better do it by being competitive against all the other players playing basketball. And that change in thinking was a catalyst that created arguably the best basketball player that's ever played the game of all time. And when we start to look at what happened, he played on two Bulls teams where all of those players on that entire team, they weren't just playing for their paychecks. They played with their blood, sweat, and tears for them. And they went on to win 3 NBA championships in 3 consecutive years. And they didn't just do it once, they did it twice. And that's something. There's been a few organizations that have won champions that have three-peated, but the amount of teams that have done that twice is very small. I think the Yankees might have done it once, but they certainly didn't do it over the course of one player's career. Now, his teammates tell stories about how competitive he was. They talk about how he wouldn't leave the court. They talk about how he'd keep practicing and pushing this idea of perfect practice, trying to make shots, trying to shoot better, moving through lanes. He managed the flow of the game better than anybody. He was pushing himself. But that's not why they played for the Bulls. That's not why they played for him. People don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. Every member of that team showed up every night to win a game, a championship. But how many of them showed up for Michael Jordan himself? The answer to that will be zero. You can even look at the story of Dennis Rodman being stuck in a hotel in Vegas and Michael Jordan having to go down there and pulling him out of bed and getting him to practice. Right? It wasn't because they were practicing harder. They all showed up for themselves. They all showed up because they believed in the same thing that Michael Jordan believed in. And ultimately, Phil Jackson, who was the head coach and who brought this all together. But they believed in what he believed in. And the how is your proof of what you believe in. Now, if you talk about what you believe, you end up attracting people who believe what you believe. That's how you gain teammates. That's how you gain friends. That's how you create an organization that believes in the same process. You build teams that believe what you believe in. That's why people are willing to help you. So, what I really hope that you're going to take away from this video is not to ask yourself, what are you doing? But ask yourself, why are you doing it? We like to follow leaders who inspire us, not because we have to, but because we want to. We follow those who lead, not for them, but for ourselves. It's those who start with why that have the ability to inspire the people around them or find others that inspire them. So today, as you go through your day and you're doing your chores, don't ask yourself what you're doing. Ask yourself why you're doing it. All right, that's going to be it for today. I will be back tomorrow, and I hope you all have a great day. Thanks for watching.